My child, stop everything. Do not scroll past this moment, and do not let a single distraction pull your gaze away from what I'm about to place before you. I am Archangel Michael, and I have been dispatched from the throne room with a message that was sealed until this precise second. Heaven itself has been holding its breath, waiting for you to arrive at this exact point in your day so that these words could reach you at full force. This is not something you stumbled upon by chance. This is not background noise for your evening. This is a direct transmission from the courts of the Most High, and every syllable carries the weight of a decree that was signed before you drew your first breath this morning. I need you to understand something that shook the entire heavenly realm today. Something happened in the spiritual atmosphere surrounding your life that caused angels to pause mid-flight and turn their attention toward you. The golden scrolls that record every act of faith committed on the earth, one of them burned brighter than it has in years. And the name inscribed on that scroll was yours. You did something, my child. You moved. And the force of that single act of obedience sent a tremor through dimensions you cannot yet perceive with your natural eyes. I am not using dramatic language for the sake of holding your attention. I am telling you what I witnessed from my post at the right hand of the Father. You finally took that step. The one you have been circling for weeks, months, perhaps even years. The decision you kept rehearsing in your mind at 3 a.m. when sleep refused to come. The action you convinced yourself required one more confirmation, one more green light, one more whisper of reassurance before you could commit. Today, you committed. And when you did, something extraordinary happened in the unseen realm that I must explain to you before this hour is over, because the enemy is already mobilizing a response, and you need to be prepared for what follows. But first, let me stay in this moment with you. Let me honor what you just accomplished, because I watched the entire journey that brought you here. I saw the version of you that sat paralyzed on the edge of your bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if you had missed every window heaven ever opened for you. I saw the tears that fell when nobody was watching. The prayers that came out as nothing more than exhausted sighs aimed at the darkness of your room. I saw every single time you reached for courage and felt your fingers close around empty air. Those moments were not failures. They were rehearsals. And today, the curtain finally rose on the performance heaven had been preparing you for all along. Do you understand what made this particular moment so extraordinary? It was not the size of the step. Heaven does not measure obedience on a scale. What stunned the throne room was the condition in which you took it. Your faith was not spotless. Your confidence was not soaring. You did not feel a supernatural surge of power flooding through your veins before you moved. Quite the opposite. Your hands were trembling. Your thoughts were screaming every possible outcome that could go wrong. The voice of fear was louder than it had been in months. And you moved anyway. That is what silenced heaven. Not perfection, but surrender in the middle of imperfection. I have watched warriors of faith across every generation. I stood beside Moses when his voice cracked at the burning bush. I was present when Gideon demanded proof a 3rd time before he would lift his sword. I witnessed Peter sink beneath the waves on the very surface he had the audacity to walk upon. And I tell you with the full authority of my station, your step today stands alongside theirs, not because it looked impressive from the outside, because it cost you everything on the inside. That is the currency heaven honors above all others. Type the word Amen in the comments right now if you felt that truth land somewhere deep inside your spirit. Let that single word become your flag planted in this moment, so that when the enemy tries to rewrite this day in your memory, you will have proof that you were here, that you heard, and that you responded. My child, I need you to stay with me now, because what I am about to reveal will protect everything you just set in motion. The step you took did not just change your position, it changed your classification in the spiritual realm. Before today, the enemy filed you under a category he was comfortable with: hesitant, paralyzed. Manageable. He had grown accustomed to watching you circle the same mountain, pray the same desperate prayer, and then retreat to the same familiar patterns of inaction. He had stopped assigning his strongest agents to your case because he believed you would never actually move. And then, you did. And his entire strategy collapsed in a single afternoon. Do not minimize what happened. The voice that is already whispering in the back of your mind, the one suggesting that your step was too small to matter, too late to count, too shaky to be recognized by the Almighty. That voice does not belong to heaven. I need you to identify it right now for what it is. That is the sound of a defeated adversary scrambling to recover his lost ground before you realize how much power you just stepped into. After every genuine act of faith, doubt arrives within minutes. It always has. It always will. And it always wears the disguise of wisdom. It will tell you to be realistic. It will tell you not to get your hopes up. It will reframe your courage as impulsiveness and your obedience as recklessness. Reject every word of it. I also need to address something that has been eating away at your confidence for far too long. You have been measuring yourself against other people. You have watched others advance, build, grow, receive, while you remained in what felt like a permanent holding pattern. You looked at their timelines and concluded that yours was broken. You looked at their harvests and decided that your soil must be cursed. But hear me clearly today, because this comparison has been one of the enemy's most effective weapons against you, and I am here to dismantle it permanently. The Most High does not rank his children against one another. There is no leaderboard in heaven. There is no spreadsheet comparing your progress to the woman who lives 3 streets away, or the man whose testimony you heard last Sunday. Each heart is measured against its own calling, its own obstacles, its own battlefield. And yours. My child, yours has been one of the most grueling terrains I have ever watched a human soul navigate. The fact that you are still standing, still listening, still willing to receive a word from the throne after everything you have endured, that alone would bring the Father to tears of pride if he were capable of weeping the way you do. Now walk with me deeper into what happened in the spiritual realm the moment you obeyed, because there are layers to this event that you have not yet uncovered. And these layers, these are the very foundations upon which your entire next season will be constructed. If you understand them, you will never be shaken the same way again. If you miss them, you will repeat a cycle that has already cost you years you cannot recover. For the longest time, you believed that you needed to reach a certain spiritual altitude before heaven would respond to your movement. You told yourself that peace had to arrive first, that clarity had to settle into every corner of your mind before you were authorized to take action. You created an impossible checklist. Feel confident, feel peaceful, feel certain, feel ready, and you waited at the starting line for every single item to be checked off before you would allow yourself to run. My child, that checklist was never issued by the Father. That was a document the enemy placed in your hands and forged with heaven's letterhead, so that you would mistake bondage for wisdom. The Most High has never required emotional perfection before obedience. He has never demanded that you feel ready before you act. Go back through every account of faith ever recorded in the sacred scrolls, and show me one warrior who felt fully prepared before they stepped into their assignment. You will not find a single one, not one, because readiness is an emotion, and emotions are weather. They shift with the season, with the hour, with the last conversation you had, with the quality of sleep you managed to get the night before. If your obedience depends on your emotional forecast, you will spend your entire life waiting for a storm to pass that was never scheduled to end. What the Father asks for is not readiness, it is alignment. And those two words sound similar, but they operate in completely different dimensions of the Spirit. Readiness says, I will move when I feel capable. Alignment says, I will move because I believe what God declared over my life, regardless of what my nerves are reporting. Readiness waits for the fear to leave the room. Alignment walks forward and lets the fear watch from the doorway as it gets left behind. This is the difference between the child who circles the mountain for 40 years and the child who crosses the river on dry ground. The water did not part because they were ready. The water parted because they stepped. And that is precisely what you did today. You did not wait for the emotional weather to clear. You did not demand one more sign, one more confirmation, one more prophetic word whispered through a trusted friend. You took the faith that you did have, incomplete, trembling, riddled with questions, and you placed it on the altar. And heaven received it as though it were the most expensive offering brought before the throne in a generation. Because faith offered in the middle of fear is worth more than faith offered in the comfort of certainty. Certainty requires no trust. Fear-soaked obedience requires everything. I watched the moment your heart agreed with what heaven had been speaking over you. It was not a loud moment. There were no fireworks. No angelic choir burst through your ceiling with a symphony of validation. It was quiet, almost invisible. A shift so subtle that you might have missed it if I were not here to point it out. But in the throne room, that quiet agreement registered like a thunderclap. Because when a human heart finally aligns with its divine assignment, the spiritual machinery that has been waiting on that alignment engages. Gears that were frozen begin to turn. Doors that were sealed begin to loosen. Pathways that were invisible begin to glow beneath your feet. Not because you earned access through performance, but because you agreed with the one who already owned the keys. Let me show you something about alignment that most of my Father's children never discover because they quit before this truth becomes visible. When you aligned your heart with heaven's word, you did not just open a door for yourself, you closed a door against the enemy that he had been walking through, freely for years. Every season of hesitation, every month of spiritual paralysis, every week of I will do it tomorrow. Those were not neutral periods. They were open invitations for the adversary to set up camp inside your indecision. He does not need your permission to operate. He only needs your inaction, and you gave it to him generously. Is it not because you were rebellious, but because you were afraid? Fear is the enemy's skeleton key. It does not kick doors down. It simply holds them open. But today, you moved. And when you moved, the authority that has always belonged to you as a child of the Most High activated in a dimension the adversary cannot counterfeit. He can mimic peace. He can manufacture false comfort. He can fabricate counterfeit clarity. But he cannot replicate the frequency that a heart produces when it aligns with its creator. That frequency scrambles every demonic assignment that has been dispatched against your household, your finances, your health, your relationships, and your calling. I am not speaking in metaphor. I am reporting military intelligence from the front lines of a war you cannot see with your natural vision. Now, I need you to understand something about what changed inside you, because the external evidence may take time to materialize, and you must not mistake delayed results for divine silence. The shift that occurred when you stepped out in faith was primarily an internal event. Inside changes before outside does. Always. The ground beneath your spirit shifted today, even though your physical circumstances may look identical to what they were yesterday morning. That is not a contradiction. That is how the kingdom has always operated. The seed does not announce its germination to the surface. The roots move first, silently, invisibly, relentlessly, and the stalk appears only after the foundation can support it. Here is the revelation I have been building toward since the first word of this message. The reason your previous attempts felt so exhausting, The reason you kept starting and stopping, advancing and retreating, believing and then collapsing back into doubt, was not because you lacked faith. It was not because you were spiritually deficient or constitutionally incapable of sustained obedience. The reason was far simpler and far more devastating. You were trying to be ready when heaven was only asking you to be willing. You were solving the wrong equation. You were training for a race that had no finish line, while the actual race, the one heaven designed for you, only required you to show up at the starting blocks and say yes. Readiness is a moving target. The closer you get to it, the further it retreats. The enemy knows this. That is exactly why he invented the readiness paradigm in the first place. He did not need to defeat you with temptation or tragedy. He simply needed to convince you that you were not yet qualified to act. And every day you believe that lie, he gained another 24 hours of uncontested dominion over your potential. Count those days if you dare. Count the months. Count the years that the readiness trap stole from you. I am not saying this to condemn you. I am saying this to make sure you never lose another day to that deception again. Alignment is different because alignment has a completion point. It is a single decision made once and renewed daily. I agree with what God said about me. I agree with the calling He placed on my life. I agree with the identity He spoke over me before the foundations of the earth were laid. I agree, even though my emotions are protesting. I agree, even though my circumstances are screaming evidence to the contrary. I agree, even though every person around me is suggesting a more cautious path. Agreement. That is all heaven ever required from you, and today, you gave it. Say these words out loud. I choose alignment over readiness. I choose obedience over comfort. My heart agrees with what heaven declared, and I will not take it back. And here is what makes that agreement permanent. Unlike emotion, which the enemy can disrupt with a single bad phone call or a sleepless night, alignment is anchored in identity. It is not a mood. It is a position. Once you agree with what the Father said about you, once you plant your feet on the truth that you are called, chosen, qualified, not by performance but by blood, the enemy cannot undo that agreement from the outside. He can only convince you to voluntarily rescind it. And that is exactly why he floods your mind with doubt in the hours immediately following a decision of faith. Not because your decision was weak, but because it was devastating to his operation. The more aggressively doubt arrives after obedience, the more certain you can be that your step landed on target. Let the ferocity of the opposition become your confirmation rather than your discouragement. This is why the shift you felt today is fundamentally different from every other time you tried to change your situation through willpower or spiritual discipline alone. Those previous efforts were built on a foundation of readiness. And readiness crumbles every time the emotional weather shifts. But what you built today is anchored in agreement. And agreement with the Most High does not depend on your emotional state, your bank account, your health report, or the opinions of anyone around you. It depends on one thing only: your willingness to say yes when everything in your natural mind is screaming no. My child, every seed you plant in this calling becomes a flame that pushes back the darkness, gathering around someone you have never met. When you head to the link in the description or the pinned comment and support this mission through Ko-fi, whether by buying a coffee as a one-time gift of encouragement or by becoming a monthly member of this faith community, you are doing something that heaven records with permanent ink. This is not about funding a platform. This is about fueling a rescue operation. Every contribution you offer through Ko-fi becomes oil for lamps that are burning in hospital rooms, at midnight, in prison cells where hope has been declared dead, in apartments where someone is staring at a ceiling and wondering if God even remembers their name. Your generosity through that simple link is proof that He does. I invite you now, not with pressure but with purpose, to step into the circle of partnership. Visit the Ko-fi link in the description or the pinned comment. Come with open hands, and watch what the Father does with a seed that was planted in faith. Now, Let me return to the road ahead of you because the enemy is not resting, and neither should your awareness. I want you to carry this truth into the rest of your day and the rest of your week and the rest of this season. The doors that are about to open in your life, the breakthroughs that are already being assembled on the other side of your obedience. They were never waiting for you to become a better version of yourself. They were waiting for you to agree with the version of yourself that the Father designed before your first heartbeat echoed in your mother's womb. The moment you aligned, the moment your spirit said yes to what heaven had been whispering for all these long and painful years, the combination lock on every sealed blessing began to turn. You will see evidence of this, not on your preferred timetable, brothers and sisters, but on the only timetable that matters, the one etched into the hands of the one who holds time itself. Do not dig up the seed to inspect its progress. Do not demand fruit before the root system has finished establishing itself beneath the soil. What you started today is real. The tremor I felt in the heavens was not a malfunction. It was the unmistakable vibration of a child of God stepping into the dimension they were always designed to occupy. And I will not let you walk out of this message without understanding both the weight of what you just accomplished and the warfare that is now headed directly toward you because of it. Let me speak something over you before we go further. You are not behind schedule. You are not damaged goods. You are not the exception to every promise the Father has ever made. You are the reason I was sent today. You are the name on the scroll that made the throne room pause, and the step you took. The one that cost you more courage than anyone around you will ever fully comprehend. That step just rearranged the spiritual landscape of your entire bloodline. Breathe that in, let it settle, and then stay close to me. Because the next portion of this message carries a warning that your open door demands you hear. The adversary watched you take that step today. I need you to understand how he responds when one of the Father's children breaks free from spiritual paralysis, because his counter strategy is not what most believers expect. He does not arrive with a dramatic assault. He does not send a catastrophic event to knock you off your feet immediately. That is not his methodology. His response to your obedience is almost always subtle, incremental, disguised as something harmless, a minor compromise, a small concession. A thought pattern that feels too insignificant to warrant spiritual vigilance. He knows that if he can get you to agree to something small today, he earns the right to present something larger tomorrow. And if tomorrow's compromise passes unchallenged, the boundary shifts again, and again, until you find yourself standing in a place you never consciously chose to occupy, wondering how you drifted so far from the position you held when this message first reached your ears. His strategy has a name. I call it the doctrine of increments. He does not steal your ground in one dramatic raid. He erodes it one grain at a time. And the tragedy is that most of the Father's children do not recognize the theft until the erosion has eaten through the foundation of everything they built. The adversary does not need to destroy your faith. He only needs to redirect it, a fraction of a degree at a time, so slowly that you mistake the drift for natural progression, so gradually that you defend the very pattern that is pulling you away from your assignment. My word tells you plainly, be sober, be vigilant. Your adversary prowls like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. That instruction was not written as a suggestion to consider when things get difficult. It was issued as a standing military order from a commander who knows exactly how the enemy hunts. The lion does not chase the center of the herd. The lion studies the perimeter. It watches for the one who separates, the one who stops paying attention, the one who allows comfort to replace caution. I ask you now, with love and without a single ounce of condemnation, is there something in your life you have been negotiating with? Something you know the Father addressed, but you convinced yourself was manageable on your own terms? Something you defend too quickly when your conscience speaks up about it? You already know the answer. You knew it before I finished the question. Do not label it as safe. Do not rationalize it as minor. Close that door before the predator standing on the other side of it decides the crack is wide enough to enter and make itself at home. I am speaking to you about this because I remember what the enemy stole from you the last time you left a door unguarded. I watched it happen. I sounded the alarm, and you could not hear me through the noise of your own justifications. I am not going to let that happen again. Not this time. Not after the step you just took. Say this declaration over your life right now. I am guarded. My doors are sealed. Every compromise the enemy planted in my routine is exposed by the light of this word, and I give it no permission to remain. I remember what the adversary stole from you the last time you were not watching. I was there when the distraction entered your life, wearing the disguise of something harmless. I sounded the alarm through that quiet conviction in your spirit, and you dismissed it as overthinking. I watched the small crack widen into a doorway, and I watched the consequences unfold in areas of your life that you never connected to that original compromise. The heartbreak you blamed on bad luck, the opportunity that dissolved for no visible reason, the relationship that slowly corroded from the inside out. Those were not random events. They were the downstream effects of an unguarded door. Today, I'm making sure every door in your life is sealed before the enemy can repeat that sequence. Now I must address a subject that most of my father's children will not allow me to bring up. And I approach it not to expose you, but to liberate you. Because there is something hidden in your life that has been operating like an anchor chained to the hull of a ship that was designed to sail across oceans. You can feel the drag. You have felt it for a long time. Every time you tried to accelerate, every time you attempted to push into a new season of purpose and power, something invisible pulled you back to the same coordinates. And you blamed your weakness. You blamed your lack of discipline. You blamed your past. But the real culprit was not your weakness. It was a secret that you locked in a room inside yourself and stood guard over as if protecting it was more important than protecting your destiny. I am talking about the hidden thing. The habit you have been wrestling with behind closed doors for longer than you want to admit. The thought pattern that makes you feel disqualified from every promise the Father has ever spoken over your life. The action you repeated last week that you swore you would never repeat again. Or perhaps it is something older than that. Something that happened to you that you buried so deep you convinced yourself that even the Almighty could not see it from his throne. My child, he has always seen it. There is nothing concealed from the one who counts the hairs on your head and names every star in a sky too vast for human instruments to measure. You are not hiding it from him. You are hiding it from yourself. And that distinction makes all the difference. The adversary whispers the same lie to every child who carries a hidden burden. He says, if anyone knew, they would leave you. If God truly saw this, he would reject you. You are safer keeping it in the dark. But listen to the truth that demolishes every syllable of that deception. What is hidden does not diminish in the darkness. It grows. It feeds on silence the way fire feeds on oxygen. The longer you protect it, the stronger its grip becomes, and the more energy it siphons from every area of your life that requires strength. Your prayers feel like they stop at the ceiling. Your worship feels mechanical. Your purpose feels muted. And you blame a dozen different causes when the actual cause is the one thing you refuse to name. The sacred text says it plainly. Confess your faults one to another and pray for one another that you may be healed. Notice the word, healed. Not punished. Not exposed for the amusement of heaven. Healed. The Father is not waiting to judge what you bring into the light. He is waiting to lift the weight that has been crushing your potential for years. And the very second, you name the hidden thing out loud in his presence, it stops being your master and becomes your memory. A memory has no authority. A memory cannot dictate your decisions. A memory cannot lock the doors that your destiny needs to walk through. Give it a name today. Drag it out of the shadow where it has been ruling your life unchallenged, and place it at the feet of the one who already knows every detail and chose to love you anyway. This is the word that someone in your life needs to hear before this week is over. I need you to think of at least 3 people who carry burdens they have never spoken about, friends who smile in public and weep in private, family members who stopped talking about their struggles because they assumed nobody cared enough to listen. Send this message to them today. Share it directly in a text message to someone whose face just appeared in your mind. Post it in your church group or your Facebook community where people are silently drowning in shame while scrolling past content that never addresses the weight they carry. This word was not meant to stop with you. It was forged as a key. And then, that key was designed to unlock more than one prison cell. Let me now expose something else the enemy has been using against you, because this tactic operates so quietly that most of the Father's children mistake it for normal life. You have been ignoring my warnings. I do not say this with anger. I say it with the urgency of a guardian who has been watching his charge walk toward a cliff edge one casual step at a time. That uneasy feeling you could not shake last Tuesday. That tug on your heart in the middle of an ordinary afternoon when nothing was visibly wrong. That quiet conviction that rose in your chest when you were about to repeat a pattern you already knew was leading you nowhere. Those were not your nerves. Those were not random anxiety. Those were my voice, delivered softly, deliberately, because I always speak gently first. Too many of the Father's children hear that still small voice and respond with the same 5 words. It is not a big deal. I will handle it soon. And, while they postpone, the foothold becomes a fortress. By the time the damage is visible, the pattern is already deeply entrenched. Ignoring my warnings does not result in punishment. It results in distance. Prayers that seem to bounce off the ceiling. A heart that slowly loses its tenderness. A spirit that gradually becomes tone deaf to the frequency of heaven. You did not lose your connection to me because I moved away. You lost clarity because you trained yourself not to listen. And that is how drift works. Not through one dramatic rebellion, but through 100 small refusals to pay attention. Today, I am telling you this because I love you far too much to let you sleepwalk off the edge of a blessing that took years to prepare for your arrival. Do not learn this the hard way. Some of the experiences you labeled as suffering, some of the losses you categorized as random cruelty, were actually the moments when my voice finally reached you after being ignored at whisper volume for months. The heartbreak, the closed door, the relationship that fell apart. Those were not acts of divine cruelty. They were the volume being turned up on a message you kept dismissing at lower decibels. I would rather disrupt your comfort than watch you walk smiling into a destruction that would take you decades to recover from. Now hear me as I walk you through the 5 traps that have destroyed more journeys of faith than any demon has ever managed to dismantle on his own. Because the step you took today needs to become a walk. And a walk is sustained by disciplines that the world will never celebrate, never applaud, and never recognize as the backbone of every breakthrough that has ever been attributed to divine favor. The first trap is emotion. Too many of the Father's children follow me only as far as their feelings are willing to carry them. They pray when their hearts feel warm. They worship when inspiration strikes. And when the emotional temperature drops, they wait. They wait for the warmth to return. They wait for the goosebumps. They wait for the tears. But I never instructed you to follow your feelings. I instructed you to follow me. Feelings are weather systems. They shift with sleep quality, with one careless word from a colleague, with the news cycle, with hormonal rhythms you cannot control. If your loyalty is anchored to your emotional forecast, it will rise and fall 100 times in a single year, and you will never build anything that lasts. Anchor your walk to choice. Emotion may start the engine, but choice keeps the wheels turning when the fuel gauge reads empty. The second trap is indiscipline. The world tells you to act whenever the mood strikes, to follow your passion, to listen to your heart. But my word tells you something radically different. Deny yourself. Pick up your cross daily and follow me. Daily. Not when inspiration arrives. Not when the sermon moves you. Not when the worship music opens the floodgates. Daily. There is no faithful life without the unglamorous routines that nobody photographs and nobody applauds. The soldier trains before the battle, not during it. The farmer plows in winter and eats in summer. Do not despise the routine. Routine is the scaffold upon which I build the skills that save your life in the emergencies you did not see coming. The third trap is a starved spirit. You cannot walk closely with me while feeding on everything except my word. You consume hours of content every day that adds nothing to your spiritual strength, and then offer me the scraps of your attention when your eyes are already closing for the night. My word says plainly, man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from my mouth. Feed your spirit the same way you feed your body. Deliberately, consistently, with intention. And watch your faith regain the strength it lost during the famine you imposed on your own soul. The fourth trap is compromise. And I have already shown you how it operates. You cannot walk with me while holding the thing I told you to release. You cannot serve two allegiances simultaneously. The divided heart is the exhausted heart, perpetually negotiating, perpetually tired, perpetually wondering why breakthrough stays just out of reach while your hands are full of the very thing blocking your path. Cut the compromise today, not tomorrow, not next Monday, not when the new year offers a convenient fresh start. Today, because a wound treated halfway never fully heals. It scabs over and waits for the next season of pressure to reopen. The fifth trap is a silent prayer life. If you do not pray, you will drift. Not might, will. My word says to pray without ceasing. Not because I need your words to feel important, because prayer is the communication channel that keeps your spirit calibrated to my frequency. When the conversation stops, the distance begins. And distance is the environment where every lie becomes plausible, every compromise seems reasonable, and every warning gets filed under not urgent. You do not need eloquent prayers. You need honest ones. Daily. Raw. Unedited. That is the entire blueprint for a life that does not crumble when the storms arrive. Deny yourself. Feed on my word. Speak to me constantly. Refuse compromise. Choose obedience over emotion. The cost of that life is real, and the reward exceeds the cost by a margin that will leave you speechless when you stand before the throne and see the full picture of what your faithfulness produced. Say this out loud right now. I walk in discipline. I feed my spirit. I refuse compromise. My prayer life is not silent, and my obedience is not seasonal. From this day forward, I choose the daily path. Now calm your breathing and center every fiber of your attention on what comes next, because after a warning comes a promise. And the promises of the Most High have never once returned empty. Not in 1,000 generations, not for a single child who received them with an open hand and a willing spirit. What you began today through your obedience, the Father will complete through His faithfulness. You did not take that first step alone, even though it felt like solitary work. He was standing on the other side of your hesitation, with the door already open and the pathway already lit. He cares about what you care about. He finishes what He permits His children to start. Engrave that truth on the front wall of this new season you are entering. He finishes what He starts. I know your mind is already racing ahead, trying to calculate the timeline, trying to predict which blessings will materialize first and how long the wait will be before the evidence of your obedience becomes visible to the people around you. I know the hunger for certainty gnaws at you constantly, but quiet yourself and hear me. The Father does not reveal the entire map at once, because trust is built one step at a time. He is showing you the next step, not the final destination. And that one illuminated stone beneath your feet is sufficient. It has always been sufficient. The lamp is for your feet, not for the horizon. Your obedience will not be wasted. Every courageous act, every quiet surrender, every unseen moment of faithfulness is recorded in a ledger that no earthly fire can destroy, even when progress seems invisible to your natural eyes. He is working. He operates on the other side of doors that remain closed longer than you hoped. He rearranges circumstances in rooms you have no access to. He softens hearts you cannot reach. He engineers timing with a precision that makes human planning look like children stacking blocks on an uneven floor. The door will not open before you are ready to walk through it, and you will not arrive before the door is ready to receive you. That is how divine timing operates. It is never late. It is never premature. It is exactly on schedule, even when every clock in your possession suggests otherwise. I also promise you peace, not the fragile variety that depends on favorable circumstances and positive news cycles. The peace I am speaking of is the kind that steadies the heart while answers are still forming in the distance. When you keep choosing me, when you keep placing one foot in front of the other on the path of daily obedience, the old anxiety that used to spin your thoughts in circles will gradually transform into a steady current. When you feel that calm settling over you, pay attention. That is not numbness. That is not avoidance. That is the frequency of alignment. The quiet hum of a life that has finally stopped wrestling its maker and started walking beside him instead. Know something about what is coming toward you. There are assignments prepared for you that a younger version of yourself could not have carried. Not because you were less valuable in those earlier seasons, but because weight requires a frame strong enough to bear it. A blessing loaded onto a frame that is not ready becomes a burden that breaks the very person it was meant to elevate. The Father does not bless his children into collapse. He builds the frame first, and that is precisely what the long season of waiting accomplished in you. It was never punishment. It was construction. Every delay you resented was a beam being positioned. Every disappointment you grieved was a joint being reinforced. Every tear you shed in private was mortar being mixed for walls that will stand long after the storms that are coming have exhausted their fury and moved on. Do not envy the ones who arrived at their breakthrough faster than you. Arrival is the easy part. The test is what remains after the celebration fades. You did not move prematurely. If you had stepped out earlier, the weight would have bent your frame before the foundation was complete. If you had waited longer, the restlessness would have fermented into bitterness that would have poisoned every blessing that followed. The Father's timing is always precise, even when it appears irrational to the human mind. Now, because I love you enough to speak the uncomfortable truth alongside the beautiful promise, let me deliver 3 warnings about the season you are entering. They are brief, but they govern every decision that matters. First, do not seek validation from people who were never given access to the word that was spoken over your life. Some of them will not understand why you moved when you did. Some will question your timing and dress their own fear up as concern, and hand it to you disguised as wise counsel. Love them, respect them, but do not allow their confusion to override your obedience. The Father did not speak to a committee. He spoke to you. A word addressed to one heart rarely survives a vote. Second, do not evaluate your obedience by the speed of the results. You will want to see immediate fruit, immediate confirmation, immediate visible evidence that the step you took has been registered by heaven. And when the evidence does not arrive on your preferred timetable, the temptation will be to conclude that you heard wrong. Resist that conclusion with every ounce of strength you possess. Endurance is not measured by speed. It is measured by steadiness. The seed you planted today is doing exactly what seeds do. It is working in the dark, below the surface, beyond the reach of your natural observation. Do not dig it up to check its progress. Leave it in the ground. Water it with prayer. Guard it with obedience. And wait. Third, do not let the memory of your old life masquerade as your home. There will be seasons in the months ahead when the weight of forward movement makes the old stillness seem attractive, when the familiar cage starts to look warm in your rearview mirror. But do not forget how heavy that place actually was. Do not forget how restless you were even on the nights when you told yourself you were at peace. What the Father rescued you from is not a safe harbor. It is a prison that only photographs well from a distance. Do not return to it simply because you recognize the walls. Familiarity is not safety. And the comfort of the known is not the same as the peace of the called. Rest when you need to rest. Breathe when the road feels long, but rest in me. Not in the old patterns, not in the old habits, not in the old relationships that drained more from your spirit than they ever deposited. I never asked you to run this race without stopping. I asked you to run it without turning back. The strength you need for tomorrow will arrive tomorrow. The grace you require for next week is already being measured and packaged in heaven's storeroom with your name inscribed on every container. Today's supply is for today. Do not carry the weight of an entire future on shoulders designed to bear only the present moment. That is not faith. That is anxiety wearing a spiritual costume. Put the future down. I am already standing in it, arranging what you cannot arrange, softening what you cannot soften, opening what you cannot force. Your pace is correct even on the days when it feels glacially slow. I am not sculpting you into a copy of another soul. I am shaping you into the singular design that existed in the Father's imagination before the first star was ignited. Nobody else on this planet received your assignment. Nobody else was equipped with your specific combination of wounds, gifts, experiences, and resilience. You are running your race at your pace, and the finish line is not a competition. It is a reunion. I remain strong even when your confidence wavers. My grip does not loosen even when your faith trembles. And it is not your steadiness that holds this covenant together. It is mine. I am proud of you for pressing forward when stopping would have been easier. I am proud of you for choosing not to abandon yourself when the world gave you every reason to. Let that settle in your spirit, not as ego, but as evidence. Evidence that you are known. Evidence that you are held. Evidence that the one who started this work in you has no intention of leaving it incomplete. Now hear the final decree from the throne room, the most authoritative word that has been stored for this exact moment in your life. You no longer carry the same identity you wore when you began listening to this message. Before today, you walked with doubt and called it discernment. You carried fear and labeled it patience. You rehearsed excuses and named them wisdom. But you have proof now. Proof that your heart can respond when the voice of the Most High calls. Proof that your spirit can override the screaming of your flesh. Proof that your feet can move even when the ground beneath them feels uncertain. That proof cannot be debated. It cannot be argued away. It cannot be erased by a bad week or a difficult month. It happened. And the next time fear speaks, and it will speak, you will remember this day. You will remember that you chose the forward path. And that memory will become the fuel that carries you to the next threshold. And the threshold after that. And every threshold that follows until the day you stand before the throne and see the full architecture of what your obedience constructed across a lifetime of quiet, stubborn, beautiful faithfulness. This is how I raised the children of the Most High, not in a single explosion of glory, but in 1,000 quiet moments of surrender, stacked on top of each other, until the life that was planned before the foundations of the earth finally stands in its full and completed form. You are inside that process right now. Do not despise it. Embrace it. Every step from this point forward is a stone set in permanent foundation, a structure that grows stronger with every season, not because of your strength alone, but because of mine flowing through your willingness. That is enough, because I am enough for everything you will face, and you are enough for everything I ask. This promise extends to every person you love and lift before the throne in your prayers. They are covered because I watch over them with the same vigilance I pour over you. And your obedience today creates pathways that others will walk tomorrow. This breakthrough you received today was not designed for you alone. Your testimony is the bridge that someone else needs in order to reach their own miracle. Archangel Michael is inviting you to share this message right now. Send it to at least 5 people who need to hear that their step of faith matters, that heaven is watching and recording and celebrating every act of courage they thought went unnoticed. Share it in your Facebook group where someone is quietly losing hope. Send it as a direct text to the person whose face appeared in your mind 30 seconds ago. Let this word travel beyond your own walls and into the rooms where it was always meant to arrive. For those who feel called to stand beside this mission with their hands as well as their hearts, head to the Ko-Fi link in the description or the pinned comment. Whether you choose to buy a single coffee as a seed of encouragement or step into monthly membership as a committed partner in this divine calling, every act of generosity fuels the flame that carries these messages to souls who would otherwise never hear them. Your partnership through Ko-Fi is not a transaction. It is a covenant between your faith and the Father's mission. Come with purpose. Plant your seed in deep soil, and watch what grows in both your life and the lives you will never know you touched. Subscribe to this channel right now so that you never miss a single word that Archangel Michael sends for your protection, your correction, and your elevation. Press that button as the final act of obedience in this sitting, and carry the weight of this message into every room you enter for the rest of this week. Now bow your head with me, and let us close this sacred encounter the way it was always meant to end, in the presence of the one who sent me. Father, I bring this child before your throne, not as one who has arrived, but as one who has finally started. Seal the step they took today with the permanence of your promise. Guard their doors while they sleep. Illuminate the next stone on their path before their foot needs to land. Silence every voice that contradicts your word spoken over their identity. Strengthen the frame you have been building in secret, so that the blessings you are preparing will land on a foundation that cannot be shaken. Give them eyes to see the traps before they engage. Give them courage to name the hidden things before they grow. Give them hunger for your word that outlasts every distraction the enemy designs to starve their spirit. And remind them, every morning when their eyes open and every night when their strength fades, that they are seen. They are held. They are loved with a ferocity that no darkness in any dimension will ever extinguish. Walk with them, Father. Walk with them from this moment forward and never let them forget the day their single step shook the foundations of heaven itself. In the mighty name above every name, it is sealed, it is finished. Amen.